They called her the Queen of the Ocean, a floating city forged in steel and ambition. In the spring of 1912, the RMS Titanic stood as the pinnacle of human ingenuity, a promise of safety, luxury, and a future where man had finally conquered the sea. But promises are fragile things. Beneath the glittering chandeliers and the roar of the massive engines lay a sequence of choices that would turn a triumph into a tragedy. This is the story of the ship that couldn't sink, the night the world stood still, and the echoes that still resonate from 2 miles beneath the Atlantic. The Titanic was conceived during a period when speed, size, and prestige defined dominance at sea. She was not built to chase speed records, but to project power and confidence across the Atlantic. Construction began in Belfast, Northern Ireland, at the Harland Wolff shipyard, one of the most advanced industrial complexes in the world. The ship was commissioned by the White Star Line and designed by naval architect Thomas Andrews, working alongside Harland Wolff's chief designer, Alexander Carlisle. Financing and strategic decisions came from White Star's owner, J. Bruce Ismay, whose vision was to surpass rival shipping lines through scale and luxury. More than 15,000 workers were involved in Titanic's construction. They shaped her steel plates by hand, drove over 3 million rivets into her hull, and assembled engines so large they could only be built in place. The work was dangerous. At least 8 men died during construction, and many more were injured, a quiet cost rarely mentioned in the ship's legend. Titanic was built with 16 watertight compartments, separated by bulkheads designed to contain flooding. She also featured a double bottom to protect against grounding. However, she did not have a double hull, and the watertight compartments did not extend high enough to prevent water from spilling from one section into the next if multiple compartments were breached. Visually, Titanic was designed to inspire awe. Her 4 massive funnels dominated the skyline, though only 3 were functional. The 4th was largely cosmetic, added to provide symmetry and power while serving as ventilation for the kitchens. Luxury defined her interiors. First-class spaces rivaled the finest hotels in Europe, featuring elevators, electric lighting, Turkish baths, and grand staircases. It was not merely transport, it was an experience. Though the White Star Line never officially marketed Titanic as unsinkable. Before her voyage, confidence in her design spread quickly. That confidence would shape decisions long after construction ended. By early April 1912, Titanic stood complete, a monument to the belief in modern engineering. And now, she was ready for her people. In the days before departure, Southampton became a place of movement and anticipation. Passengers arrived by train and carriage, carrying trunks, letters, and expectations that stretched far beyond the voyage itself. Some boarded for prestige, others for opportunity. Many were leaving their homelands behind, believing this crossing would mark the start of a new life. First-class passengers included industrialists, politicians, and social elites. Second-class passengers were teachers and professionals, comfortable but without excess. Third-class passengers, often labeled steerage, were largely immigrants. Their accommodations were modest, but cleaner and more spacious than those on many earlier ships. Contrary to later portrayals, many third-class cabins were located closer to open decks than commonly believed. This would later influence survival in ways few expected. On April 10, 1912, Titanic departed Southampton. As she eased away from the dock, crowds gathered along the shore. None imagined this would be the last time many aboard would see land. After brief stops in Cherbourg and Queenstown, Titanic turned west toward the open Atlantic. The voyage had begun. Once underway, Titanic settled into routine. Meals were served on schedule. Music drifted through the public rooms. Below decks, engineers fed coal into roaring furnaces. A fire had been burning in one of the coal bunkers since before departure, not uncommon, but persistent. The crew worked to contain it, unaware that the prolonged heat may have weakened sections of the hull near the area that would later be struck. Wireless messages arrived throughout the voyage. Some were casual, others carried warnings. Ice had been reported ahead. At least 6 ice warnings were received on April 14th alone. Several never reached the bridge. Others were acknowledged but not acted upon. The ship maintained near maximum speed. Confidence remained intact. As night fell on April 14th, the Atlantic was unnaturally calm. There were no waves breaking against ice and no moonlight to reflect the danger ahead. Visibility relied entirely on human sight. In the crow's nest, lookouts scanned the darkness. Without binoculars. The binoculars were locked away in a cabinet. The key had been taken off the ship accidentally by a reassigned officer. No replacement was provided. At 11:40 p.m., the iceberg appeared. The warning bell rang. Orders were shouted. The ship turned sharply, avoiding a head-on collision, but the iceberg scraped along the starboard side, slicing open the hull below the waterline. Inside the ship, the impact felt minor. Many passengers barely noticed. But below decks, water began flooding into multiple compartments. Thomas Andrews quickly assessed the damage. His conclusion was mathematical and absolute. The Titanic was sinking. Orders were given to prepare the lifeboats. To prevent panic, passengers were initially told there was no danger. The ship remained brightly lit. The band continued to play. Some passengers refused to board the boats, unwilling to believe a vessel of this scale could fail. There were only 20 lifeboats, enough for roughly half of those aboard. Many boats were launched partially filled. Confusion reigned as training was limited and procedures were unclear. While class boundaries influenced movement, survival did not align neatly with wealth. Despite historical portrayals, third-class passengers ultimately had a higher survival rate than second-class men, due in part to access routes and cabin locations. As the bow sank lower, urgency replaced disbelief. Families were separated. Decisions were irreversible. Water poured over bulkheads never designed to contain it. The ship's angle steepened. Objects slid across the decks. People clung to railings. The band played on. Led by Wallace Hartley, the musicians performed to keep the passengers calm. Survivors would later disagree on the final song. Some recalled "Nearer, My God, to Thee," while others remembered the popular tunes of the era. Shortly after 2 a.m., the Titanic broke apart. For decades, survivor accounts of the ship breaking in two were dismissed by experts, until the wreck was discovered in 1985, proving the survivors right. The stern rose, the lights flickered and went out, and the Titanic vanished beneath the surface. The ocean was lethal. Those who entered the water lost muscle control within minutes. Screams filled the darkness, then faded into silence. One man, Charles Johin, the ship's baker, survived longer than most. Having consumed alcohol earlier in the night, his shock response was slowed, allowing him to float for hours before being pulled from the sea. Nearby, the SS Californian sat less than 20 miles away. Its wireless operator had gone to sleep for the night. Despite the Titanic's distress flares, no help came from the horizon. Hours later, the RMS Carpathia arrived. The lifeboats were gathered, and survivors were pulled aboard, cold, exhausted, and grieving. More than 1,500 people were gone. The ocean was silent once again. News spread slowly. Initial reports were tragically wrong, with some claiming all passengers were safe, but the reality was devastating. As families waited for names, many never heard them. Public outrage demanded answers. The United States Senate and the British Board of Trade launched inquiries. Survivors testified and officers explained their decisions. Lifeboat shortages, ignored warnings, and wireless practices were scrutinized. This led to revolutionary reforms. Lifeboats for all aboard a vessel. 24-hour wireless operation, the creation of the International Ice Patrol. These changes reshaped maritime safety, saving countless lives in the century that followed. But they came too late for the Titanic. Decades later, the Titanic was located deep beneath the Atlantic. Submersibles explored the wreck, revealing its skeletal remains and artifacts preserved in the freezing dark. Objects recovered told the stories of those aboard: a child's shoe, a woman's compact, letters carried by emigrants. These remnants humanized the statistics. They ensured that the memory of the ship, its crew, and its passengers endured. The Titanic remains a testament to human ambition, a cautionary tale of assumption, and a reminder that even the grandest constructions are vulnerable when human judgment and risk collide. The Titanic rests in silence, far below the waves, a city of steel reclaimed by the Atlantic. Time has passed, yet the memory of that night remains alive in the stories of survivors and the artifacts left behind. The ship was more than a vessel. It was a mirror of our own confidence and belief. Every choice, every assumption, and every error contributed to the outcome. It was a disaster born of many failures, layered and intertwined. Yet there is a quiet lesson in the endurance of her story. The lives saved, the reforms that followed, and the discoveries that continue to reveal her secrets all remind us that vigilance can emerge from catastrophe. The Titanic is gone, but her story remains, not as a spectacle, but as a testament to the fragile line between human ambition and human vulnerability.